Hey everybody, I hope you're all doing well. I wanted to try and do a fall-inspired makeup look that would be better suited to people with very fair skin. It still has a little bit of a vampy edge, but it's toned down a bit so it won't overwhelm your features if you do happen to have a very fair complexion like me. So I'm starting with foundation and I'm using MAC Face and Body in N1. And since this is a little bit dark for me, I'm using the Maron Celebre Pro HD Cream Makeup in the shade Eurasia Ivory. And that's a really great shade to lighten your foundation if you have warm undertones. MAC Face and Body is a really great foundation if you have dry skin like me and if you're after a more natural coverage. But if you do have more oily skin or you feel more comfortable with a foundation that gives you a lot of coverage, then use whatever foundation you know works best for you. For my brows, I'm starting off by brushing through them with a spoolie to make sure the hairs are all going in the right direction, and then I'm filling them in using the NYX Tame and Frame Brow Gel in the shade Blonde. And after I do that, I go back in with the spoolie and make sure that everything looks nice and natural. To set that all in place, I'm using the Essence Make Me Brow Gel in the shade Blondie Brows. For my eyes, I'm starting by priming with the NYX Proof It Eyeshadow Primer. I'm applying it all over my lids as well as just under my lower lash line. This step really helps increase the longevity of your eye makeup and prevents it from creasing and smudging throughout the day. So I lost the footage of this, but before I started applying eyeshadow, I put some foundation powder all over my eyelids to give myself an even base, and this also helps to make your eyeshadows easier to blend out. Transition shade, I used Nude from the Urban Decay Naked Ultimate Basics palette. I put this through the socket, under my eyes, and winged it out at the outer corners, making sure the blending is soft and diffused. Next, I took a mixture of the shades Commando and Tempted from the same palette. I started by working it through the crease and making sure I didn't blend it up too high so I didn't cover up the first shade. I also ran it under my lower lash line and added it to the outer corner, winging it out slightly to add definition and to elongate my eyes. To add some depth, I'm using the rich purple shade called Lethal and putting it mostly in the outer corner. You can use as much or as little as this shade as you want depending on how dramatic you want the look to be. Using a deep purple instead of a black is not going to look quite as harsh, and it's also going to help complement green, brown, and hazel eyes. If you're like me and you have really hooded eyes, a good tip is to stop every few seconds when you're blending and look straight ahead into a mirror. That way you can see what everything looks like when your eye is opened instead of closed. I also blended some of the shade along my lower lash line so it would look a little smokier. I wanted to brighten the look up a little bit and add some shimmer to the center of my eyelid, so I took the Pixie Beauty Blush Duo in Peach Honey and used the more pinky salmony side all over my eyelid. I think this is actually supposed to be a highlighter for your cheeks, but it's too dark for me, so it's going on my eyes. Once I was happy with how much of the shade I'd built up on my lids, I used a clean blending brush to make sure there were no harsh edges between the shimmer and the matte shades. To line my eyes, I used the NYX Slide On, Glide On, Stay On, and Definitely Turn On Waterproof Eyeliner in 15 Brown Perfection, and this stuff is awesome. It's one of my favorite eyeliners, drugstore or high-end, because everything smudges on me, or bleeds, or makes a giant mess, and this stuff stays put pretty much all day long. So for this look, I wanted the eyeliner to be kind of smudgy and hazy, so what I did was make a thin, small line starting from about the middle of my eyelid, and I winged it out a little bit, and then I took a very thin brush and smudged that line to achieve that hazy, smoky liner look. If you're having a hard time blending your eyeliner enough so that it looks smoky and seamless, then it's really helpful to take a little bit of eyeshadow that's a similar shade to the eyeliner you're using and use that to sort of diffuse the edges a little bit further. I also run that eyeliner through my tight line to help make my lashes look thicker and darker and to help cover up any little bits of skin that poke out from between them. With a flat concealer brush, I applied the Skin Food Salmon Dark Circle Concealer Cream to the deepest parts of my dark circles to help knock out the blue and purple tones I have under my eyes. Since this product is a bit lighter and it doesn't have the strongest salmon hue to it, if you have really intense dark circles or if you have a deeper skin tone, this probably won't be enough for you, and I'd suggest finding something with a bit more of an orange tone to it. Next, I took the NYX HD Concealer in the lightest shade and put that over top of the corrector I had first used. I also used this to sort of shape the edge of my eye makeup to make sure the edges looked cleaner and more defined. I also applied this around my nose, my mouth, and a little bit on my chin. I just wanted to make sure that any redness or discoloration or blemishes that weren't covered up by the foundation weren't standing out too much. Whether you're using a sponge, a finger, or a brush to blend, make sure you do so gently so you don't hurt your skin, especially under your eyes because the skin here is very delicate. Apparently, I lost the footage of the powder I used on that day, so I don't remember which one specifically it was. But I took a translucent powder and patted it under my eyes to set the concealer, and then took a small amount of it on a large fluffy brush and patted all over my face to set the foundation without making my face look too dry. To warm up my very pasty face, I used the Pacifica Coconut Blush Duo, which I was disappointed to find does not in fact smell of coconut. I put this where the sun would hit, on my forehead, my cheeks, my nose. I also blended it down my jaw and my neck a little bit to make sure that my face and body didn't look like they belonged to two different people. To add a little bit more dimension back into my face, I used the NYX Single Shadow in the shade SOS, which is a really fantastic contour shade for people with very fair skin. It's a very light, very gray toned taupe, so it mimics shadows very well, but it's also a little bit on the sheer side, so it's basically impossible to go overboard with even if you're ridiculously pale like me. I put this in all the usual contour spots, on the forehead, under the cheekbone, down the sides of the nose, and a little bit under my lip. I also used this to sort of slim down and sculpt my jaw a bit and make sure I didn't have more than one chin. Going back to that coconut blush duo from before, I used the blush side to give my cheeks a natural rosy flush. I wanted something more neutral so it wouldn't compete too much with the eyes and the lips. To highlight my face, I'm using the shade Hint by Everyday Minerals. It's a white shade, so it's great for really fair skin. But I like that it's not an over-the-top highlighter because I have a lot of texture on my skin, and the shimmer in this is a bit more refined and pearly and subtle, so it doesn't make things like fine lines and small bumps and patches of dry skin look more obvious like more intense highlighters can. For the inner corners of my eye, I wanted to use a highlighter that had a bit more warmth and shine to it, so I used the shade Show Me Your Glow by Elizabeth Mott and applied it with a small, stiff brush. To finish off my eyes, I curled my eyelashes and then used my favorite mascara, the CoverGirl Lash Blast Waterproof, to put a couple coats on both my top and bottom lashes. I didn't focus quite as much on the top lashes because I was going to be applying false lashes. I just wanted to make sure they were dark and they would hold their shape, and then because of that would blend in better with the false lashes. So I'm really bad at filming the whole false lashes process, but what I used were the Kiss Trio lashes, which are basically just clusters of 3 individual lashes, and they're some of my absolute favorites because they're just so easy and quick to apply. So I wanted to give a few lip options to wear with this look, and the first one I used was a liquid lipstick from Ciate in the shade Pinup, which is a really great kind of neutral, deep, rosy shade. I love the formula of the Ciate liquid lipsticks because they're a little bit thinner, a little bit more lightweight, and they're not quite as drying as a lot of other liquid lipsticks tend to be. Next, I used Rose Naturelle from Pixie, which is a light rosy brown shade with a more glossy finish. For those who want something more vampy, I used the NYX Simply Vamp Lip Cream in the shade 4, which is a very deep wine color. For the nude lip enthusiasts, I use the Tarte Tarteist Lip Paint Liquid Lipstick in the shade Rosé, which is a great neutral nude that works on a ton of skin tones. And finally, for the last look, I took a deep, warm red shade and concentrated it on the center of my lips, blending it outward to create a gradient so that the look would have some depth but still look a little softer. If you like this video, make sure you do me a favor and give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and share with friends so that other people can see my videos too. You can also follow me on Instagram at SarcasmAndLipstick. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.